Good afternoon. Welcome back to the channel. This video is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own research, make your own decisions. All right, guys, welcome back. Just want to give my thoughts on a number of different things. There's probably not going to be a whole lot of value added in this video, so just heads up on that. But, now that I've been back on Twitter for a few days, not that I didn't think this before, but it's just more evident now that I can actually post things and reply to comments and everything. But there's just not a lot of serious people on Twitter having serious conversations about important things. And the reason I say that is because I see, and even me myself, you try to make sensible points about very important things, and it's just not the right environment. Okay. Yes, it does happen on a small scale, but it's far outweighed by the shit show. And so I think it's just important to understand the environment that you're in. And, it's not always going to be this way. Okay. It can't always be this way because at some point in time, if all this tech is going to be adopted globally, then at some point there have to be serious conversations and developments as it relates to technology. All right. And, retail has been, I don't want to say, I think brainwashed is probably the best word, to look at crypto as like this retail DeFi thing. And it's just, while everybody's looking at retail DeFi, like that's the big thing here, they're completely dismissing what's happening on the institutional front. And people talk more about crypto. If you were to just, do a temperature gauge and you were to have the statistics for this, I imagine it would probably be about 90% talking about retail DeFi type things and about 10% talking about serious institutional use cases that are already live and operational. And it just highlights the insanity of the space. And so Twitter and most people, content creators in the crypto space on Twitter, are not serious people. They should not be viewed as serious people. And most of the things that they're saying, guys, there's so many things on Twitter that if the person had to get on a live streaming platform and have that and actually defend what they're saying against somebody who even has a clue what they're talking about and has a counter argument, most people couldn't defend many of the things that they say on Twitter. I don't even feel the need to start trying to refute things people are saying because there's too much. I would be consumed with that all day, every day. But not only that people will openly say that, larger accounts will openly say things that they 100% could not defend if they had to. But see, the platform and the design and how Twitter works is not, it's not really set up for people to get to the bottom of what the truth is and to have serious conversations and for the sensible, logical, most logical position to win out. That's not the environment, okay? And so just understand that. So I'm just going to open the video by saying that, right? Guys, everybody thinks that they found the big thing in crypto for the most part, right? I mean, you could probably list off 15 to 20 different crypto communities, and everybody is convinced that 100% convinced that they found the big thing, right? And so how would you do an objective keyword assessment of whether or not you're heading in the right direction as it relates to finding the big thing in the space? Well, I would look at different criteria, right? Just because some person looks at some technology and thinks it's the future and thinks it's going to be the number one crypto, that's all well and good. But once you look at everything across the entire space against certain criteria, where does your thing stack up? right? So I would look at the technology, and that's an all-encompassing category, I guess. So all the functionality, everything like that. Active users, active developers, use case or use cases, extremely important. And this does get people, I'll go back into that here in a second, but the target market itself and the size of the target market, that's important. What problem or problems does this technology solve? The team itself, any amount of institutional adoption or support that has happened up until this point. Differentiating factors probably going to be the biggest thing in my opinion. Well, really all of it is because it's an overall assessment, but I would say differentiating factors is going to be one of the most important things. And not just differentiating factors, we've been over this before, but given those differentiating factors that you have that nobody else has, how big of a problem are they solving? That's really the big thing. And you're just looking at it and how it compares to other comparable technology. And when you look at all of these different things, okay, so let's just go one by one. The tech, in my opinion, I don't even think that there's a debate. And I don't think that anybody really could have that debate. At the end of the day, I'm just going to pull this up and just say, I mean, I don't know what you want me to say. You might have more active users, you might have a higher price, but this is the situation underneath. And important point. So this is actually the biggest takeaway for the video, probably. There are certain things that are kind of set in stone, and there's certain things that are more variable. Meaning, and I was joking about this on Twitter, but price going up does not change the underlying technology. Price going down does not change the underlying technology. For the most part, I know there's unique situations with things like tokenomics, but just go with me here. So the technology itself, yes, there will be upgrades, they will add new functionality, and this is with ICP and with everything else. But as far as base network functionality, that's not going to change very much, right? And so the market itself and the narratives in crypto, those can change very quickly. That doesn't require a whole lot of back-end stuff happening, R&D, development, time. That can happen in a very short time period. Now, what can't happen in a very short time period is all of these different networks going back to the drawing board and figuring out a way to develop all of this additional functionality to be able to do all of these things that ICP is already doing. That can't change very quickly. And so the underlying network level functionality, I'm not saying that it's set in stone, but it's not going to change but so much. And if it were to change drastically with any other network, that would take a decent amount of time, a lot of R&D, engineering, a lot of things would have to happen in order for that to change drastically to where it would get brought up to where it's comparable to ICP. But the market itself and the narratives in crypto, that can change very, very quickly. So just keep that in mind, especially in times where, and that's really one of the biggest issues with crypto is that, I remember the bear market, all right? And I remember the percentage of people that were bear posting and bearish in general in the bear market. But apparently everybody in crypto bought Solana, Injective, and a couple others at the exact bottom. So even though it was probably the most bearish scene you've ever seen in your life, simultaneously, everybody in crypto was buying those assets. Now, what probably happened is a small percentage of people that actually have conviction and balls bought the bottom, right? I remember some accounts. And then the large majority of retail people FOMO'd in after a 3, 4, 5, 6x. And then after they do that, they start running around and projecting all over the internet, telling people how stupid they are because they're not FOMOing in after something goes parabolic. And so it just creates a lot of it makes people in different communities very defensive a lot of times. And to some degree, I kind of understand why. And, but it's all delusion. Okay, that's really the point that I'm trying to get across. It's all delusion. Okay, so the technology, in my personal opinion, ICP, hands down, no questions. And I've laid out my case numerous. See, and the thing is that somebody else will pull up this exact same criteria and say, you know, XYZ chain is the best technology, blah, 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 blah. But the thing is about the ICP crowd, we can actually make that case. They can make that case in a vacuum in their own little echo chamber, but they couldn't make that case against an informed person having a serious conversation about real technical functionality. And so active users, obviously I didn't put a star here, but I've been over this before. And yes, I do think it's an important metric, but I've been over my thoughts on where everything stands with active users right now. And that can also change relatively fast. The big thing that is going to stick for the most part is the network level functionality and what your tech can do. All right. So active developers, I mean, per the metrics that I've seen, ICP is either at the top or close to the top in the entire space, and they have the biggest R&D team in the space, which I put team down there closer to the bottom. Use cases, I mean, they check every single crypto narrative. All right. The target market, everything, because they're targeting pretty much every single use case. All right. And on top of that, too, because of all these additional differentiating factors and because they can operate on all these other networks, they're going to open themselves up to those markets because they can directly integrate and they can serve as the application layer for whatever other network it is. They're going to open themselves up to all of these different markets when these other technologies are confined to their own ecosystem. What problems it solves, the team itself, institutional adoption, and differentiating factors. I would look at criteria like this. And obviously you would have to break it down a little bit further to different, you know, actual metrics. And certain ones of these you probably couldn't. You have just more so list off, you know, different functionality use cases and things like that. But this is the criteria I would look at. And when you objectively look at any serious criteria, in my opinion, the answer is ICP without a close second. All right. So while everybody might believe, and let me go back to something really quick, use case. I do think this gets some people because, and maybe I'll end up being wrong and they'll end up being right. I don't know. But for something like Bitcoin or a currency play, right? Just think of any of the other currency plays out there. They're not really trying to be like an enterprise system, you know, for institutions. They're more so just a currency play. I understand why people who believe that the currency play that they have bet on is going to be the reserve currency or a reserve currency. I understand why those people come to the conclusion that they do, because they're looking at that use case and they're saying nothing could be bigger than this. And so I do get that, but that's why I think it does get some people. Okay. Does anyone else, this is an important question too, does anyone else in the entire space have a plausible, right? Not something about their hopes and dreams of things happening that aren't technically possible. But does anyone else have a more plausible thesis on how all of this comes together? Because I haven't heard it. The only one I've heard, I haven't even really heard any big picture thesis on how all this is going to come together. You don't really hear a whole lot of people in other communities talking about that. Like, do all these other communities just think we're going to be on AWS and Google Cloud forever and we're not going to have data ownership? Like, what is their thesis? And you don't really hear one. In my opinion, because it's very difficult to explain how we're going to get to mass adoption without something like ICP. And that was why I was kind of confused early on when I was looking at this, because there were too many holes. There were too many scalability issues. The functionality or the options of operating network to network it just seemed like I was like, there's no way. But once I found ICP, it all made sense. It just makes more and more sense over time as I better understand what these different technologies do and I understand ICP's full capabilities. But it's very difficult to explain how we're going to get from where we are right now to mass adoption, everybody in the world using it without something like ICP. And that's probably why you don't hear a lot of big picture thesis in other communities, at least in my opinion. There is no alpha for the most part on Twitter. There might be. I mean, I'm sure there is, but it's probably, 2 to 3% of the entire crypto content on Twitter. And the other 97, 98% is just delusion. I don't know a better way to put it. That's why I can't really, I might just have to turn my Twitter account into a parody account because it's not a serious place. And if I try to have serious conversations and post about serious things, I'm just going to be bombarded with idiots. So, I guess, again, I could be wrong about all this. I just, I don't see this going in any other direction at this point. Obviously, nothing's ever a sure thing. That's not financial advice, but I don't see this going in any other direction. And for newer people, if you're newer to the ICP space, like you came in over the last like 4 or 5 months, if so, welcome. Thrilled you got in. Not financial advice, but thrilled you got in. But what I will say is that for a lot of us, being in profit is something that we're not used to, right? Like, so all we've known for the most part is downward price action and FUD. That's it. Um, and the reason why I say that is I do think that it's worthwhile to kind of like take a step back and just acknowledge that even for those of us that bought higher, like my first buy was at 60. If you dollar cost average throughout the entire bear market, you probably pushed your average down pretty significantly, like I did, and you're probably up right now. So it's important to take a step back and not to lose sight of that because we were told that ICP was going to zero and that we were going to lose all of our money. And I've been buying ICP for over 2 years at this point. And the last I checked, my position was up like a six-figured amount, maybe a little bit less now with this pullback. I don't know. I'd have to do the numbers. And by the way, the flash crash that I've seen, or just the general downward price action that I've seen, in my personal opinion, extremely bullish. All of this leverage needs to be flushed out. And whenever it's over, it will be over. Okay. But also, like, it's worthwhile to step back and like appreciate all the good things that have been happening. A lot of people who have been in the ICP space for a long time are finally in profit. We're seeing significant institutions adopt ICP. And they have solutions for most every single problem in the space. So, all right. Everything will happen when it's supposed to happen. In many ways, we should be thankful for the current state of crypto. We should be thankful for all the stupidity on crypto Twitter. We should be thankful that the market has done exactly what it's done over the last couple of years, because if it had not, and if this was not the situation on crypto Twitter and with the crypto mainstream as a whole, the opportunity itself would not have been there. So while it is frustrating having to listen to stupid people on a regular basis say stupid things, that environment itself created the opportunity. So don't lose sight of that either. And again, guys, I mean, this was the move. All right. This was the move. It's probably down a little bit now with the further drop. But I mean, at the end of the day, guys, that was the move. Okay. And I've always seen this as a very black and white thing. I think ICP's either going to zero or it's going to become the hub for Web3. And I think sitting here today, all the available evidence suggests that it's going to become the hub for Web3. Even though nothing's ever a sure thing, this is not financial advice. Do your own research, manage your own risk, but try not to get too frustrated over the shit show on Twitter or in the crypto mainstream. It is a temporary situation. All right. And certain things can change very, very quickly, like price, like a narrative in crypto. But that underlying technology is largely going to stay the same, regardless of what the brainlets on Twitter think or say. So that's all I have for this video. This was not financial advice. Do your own research. That's it. Take care. Have a good day. I'll see you in the next video.